A nightmare is a look at a part of ourselves that we've repressed, that we're ashamed of or embarrassed by, or somebody has shamed us into believing that is not a good thing to experience. Um, and we're ashamed of it too. So it comes up as a nightmare to tell us, no, this part of you is needed. It may have been shamed by somebody else, or maybe you don't like it, but you need it right now.
With no limitations, what does your perfect day look like? What if it's possible to live like that every day? Would you wake up after 9 a.m, have perfect health, maybe fire your boss, have the money and freedom to do what you love most? The world is your oyster. Where would you be? Who would you be with? The possibilities are endless. Whether you believe it's possible for you or not, you can make more, work less, and live free. Welcome to Freedom Hack Radio, where entrepreneur, best-selling author, world traveller and adventurer, Bryce Robertson and special guests crack the code on money, health, relationships, spirituality and having fun doing what you love most. Be inspired to create your own self-designed freedom lifestyle.
G'day and welcome back to another episode of Freedom Hack Radio. I'm your host, Bryce Robertson, and today, my friends, we are going to talk about your dreams. And I'm not talking about desires and aspirations. I'm literally talking about the dreams we have while we're sleeping. And to help us decode these mysterious happenings is our special guest, Noeli Lynton. Noeli has retired after 40 years in high school classrooms where she awakened thousands of teenagers to a love of reading poetry, writing it, and performing in poetry slams. Simultaneously, for the past 40 years, Noeli uses her deep knowledge in symbols, imagery, and myth to teach Dreamwork classes where they share dream experiences and attempt to decode the great mysteries of nightly wisdom. Noeli offers classes in mythology, poetry, and dreamwork, and leads two small communities in Dreamwork monthly. Noeli, I'm curious to hear about your opinion of how we can start decoding our dreams. Welcome to the show.
Oh, hi, Bryce. Nice to be with you.
Awesome,
Whew.
awesome. So, Noeli, I'm curious to know what's got you feeling the most gratitude today.
Oh, man. It's a really pretty day, and I'm feeling really healthy. This is good.
Yeah,
And I'm with you. What? I'm with you.
perfect.
That's good enough.
That's awesome, awesome. So, Noeli, in your opinion, tell me what are our dreams for?
Well, they really are, for my view and lots of dream workers' view, is that it's always meant to increase and push us toward our wholeness, balancing us back and forth. If we're going one direction that's not good for us, a dream will wake us up and try to give us a message. Even if we can't intellectually understand it, it's doing its work. It's moving our psyche toward balance, toward wholeness. And the dreams never condemn an individual. They're never meant to shame us or embarrass us or horrify us, even if the dreams are scary. They're more like shock treatment. Wake up, notice.
Okay, so it's more of a message. It's an opportunity for us to find out an area of our life where we can create more balance.
That's exactly what they should do. Yes.
Really.
Uh,
And so, when we have a dream, would you say that a dream has one meaning, or could it have multiple meanings? Like, what's your perspective on that?
yeah. A lot of people would like to think that there's only one meaning of every dream. And
Hmm.
and so once in a while, people will have a precognitive dream, a foretelling, and they'll think that's all it's about. But almost every dream has a precognitive level. There's about 10 levels of every dream. There's health that's always remarked on. There's psychological balance. There's emotional balance. There's the daily cleanse so that we clean out things we noticed on the subconscious level, but not on the conscious level. And then there's dreams of big events. Almost always they show up in every level, all 10 levels. So you can interpret a dream through all those different versions, but my favorite is the psychological level that is really addressing my psyche's well being. And every once in a while, I'll hear one that is so clearly about health, that's a becomes a higher priority. And that's what I'll talk about when I hear a dream.
Okay. And I know that your philosophy is that only the dreamer knows the true meaning of their dreams.
Mhm.
And so, like, what do you mean by saying that? That only the dreamer actually knows their dreams?
Yeah, the symbols and imagery that comes to the dreamer is not my imagery. I didn't cook up my second grade friend to tell somebody else the truth. My dream is about my development. Sometimes it's about things beyond me and it allows me to prepare emotionally for something coming, but most of the time it's meant to address my particular growth, my soul's journey. So it will speak to me. And maybe I can guess by saying, well, if that were my dream, this is what it would be saying to me. But ultimately, you ask the dreamer questions to get at where they found that image and what their emotional reaction to it is and what are their associations with it before you ever layer on the archetypical meanings or the mythic meanings of an image in a dream. And you really, it's in your unconscious, Bryce. So no one really knows immediately. They can't say, "Oh, I know what that dream is about," because you can't. It's unconscious to you at this moment.
Hmm.
It's not known to you. So it will surface, and all you can do is probe it, ask it, think about associations with it. But you're the only one. No one else can tell you.
So, do you think by nature of us not by nature of a dream being a way of a message to get to us that there's something there that's out of balance, something that we could learn from, something we could improve from, that we probably wouldn't know the answer to it because like clearly we don't know the answer. That's why the message is there. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and it's working on a level that we haven't made conscious yet. We can make it conscious. That's what some dream work is. But most people don't remember almost all of their dreams. They don't remember them. Is there something wrong
Hmm.
with that? No, that's normal. We don't have a dream remembered unless we're actively seeking the dreams. We want them. We want to use our intelligence to advance our growth. But
Hmm.
most of the time, a dream will only come if it can add something to our growth, even if it's, I mean, we're so used to rational story that we're not used to having a prompt from the irrational world of imagery and
Hmm.
symbols. But that's what it's doing. It's an effect, it's affecting us, whether we understand it or not.
Okay. So before you were saying that only the dreamer knows the meaning. So like to elaborate on that a little bit. Let's say, for example, I had a dream and there was a gun shooting off. Like you're basically saying that depending on what my past experiences have been like and what my dislikes and likes are, maybe a gun going off could be really exciting because maybe I'm a hunter or I'm a shooter and that's like super exciting for me.
Mhm,
Or maybe it's like really scary for me and like guns really scare me.
mhm.
So you couldn't sit there and say, "Oh, the gun means this." You would have to like dig deeper and
I
find
would.
out what's that person's association with
That's how
guns,
it
you know?
works. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a helpful thing to know the person's reaction to, say, a gun. But there are archetypical meanings of guns. That
Okay.
means, and that's what I would add after I finish asking questions about how do you feel about that gun, that sound, that experience. I would ask that, and then I would add, a gun is symbolically is a tool of change, meaning it's going to affect life or death if it's used to kill. That means life is changed forever. So symbolically, it's a tool of change, death,
Okay.
and that I would add that, and maybe
Death of a person or death of a quality within us or death of an old grudge or like, death of what?
yeah. You were just saying if a gun went off, but if a gun was
Mhm.
used in a dream to shoot somebody, you'd have to look at who it shot and who is that character, the aspect of which is mine. Every person in the dream, everything in the dream is me, including the gun and the person. So if that person represents, say, I asked you, so what does Larry mean as a quality? What's his best quality? And you'd say, he's a a really easygoing guy. And I'd say, what's his flaw too? Tell me his flaw. Well, he lies a lot. So we'd have to know then, we'd have to look at it and ask you, the dreamer, you apparently, with the gun that you're holding, have changed this aspect of yourself. The part of you that's really easygoing has changed forever. And, or the part of you that lies a lot has changed forever. Does that resonate with you? Does that sound like
Mm,
something that's happening to you? What's changing
mm,
in you, Bryce? The quality that's like Larry has been changed.
really.
That's
So what you are saying here is, say, for example, I'm having a dream, right? Larry's in the dream. There's a monkey in the dream. There's like, I don't know, there's like trees falling over, all of these different things, all of these different objects, the monkey, the trees falling over, maybe there's a gun in there, the Larry's in there, all these different objects, maybe I'm in there. They're not external objects necessarily. I'm not like having an experience witnessing all these outside things. You're saying that each of these objects is actually a part of my personality,
yeah.
or part of my traits, or some part of me, maybe a part of my fears or something like this.
Yep, you're right. That's right.
Wow. Wow.
It's not
How,
not easy to believe, but this is a fairly Jungian view. So I translate a
when you
dream.
when you say Jungian, do
Oh,
you mean like Carl
Carl
Jung?
Jung, yeah,
Carl Jung?
he
Yep,
used the
yep.
symbol. So if I hear a dream like this, um, I'm running through a dark forest and I'm being chased by unknown beings. I crawl into a hollow log and the unknown beings run by. Now, the way I hear
Mm,
it, so that I can move to every part of the dream as a part of that dreamer, I hear the a part of me is running through a dark forest part of me, being chased by the unknown parts of me. I dive into a hollow log part of me, and the unknown parts of me run by. So if I can keep that in mind, I don't hear anything as literal, like, oh, you're supposed to go into the forest and hide in a hollow log. That's what that dream means? No. It's symbolic of some part of you, an earthy part of you, like the log, the unknown parts, the forest part of you, the kind of dark but organic part of you. It's not literal, but that's how I have to translate.
So it's quite the concept to actually wrap our heads around the fact that all of these different objects are actually part of us. I think that's mind-boggling. That totally changes the way that I would look at dreams, because I've always looked at dreams as like, if someone's chasing me, maybe I better watch out for people, because there's people coming to get me, you know. But you're more saying that if there's people chasing me in a dream, some part of me is chasing some other part of me, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, and the scary part of getting a nightmare where you think it's actual people chasing you or being mad at you. That's really well, it's a horrible way to live because it feels like then things in our nighttime, our sleeping, are actually trying to hurt us and trying to make us feel bad. And so I heard a dream from a 14-year-old who was telling me that she woke up from a dream where she was being chased for a long time by
Mm.
a very big, dark, hairy man with a huge knife, running and running. Well, she got out of the dream and told me the dream. And I said, how have you been with your anger? And she said, well, I don't let people make me mad. I think it's not Christian. I said, have you
Okay.
been pushed around a little bit? And she said, oh, yeah, there's some girls who are really bullying me, but I walk away. And I said, would it occur to you that just a little drop of anger would help you defend yourself? Because I'll tell you what I think that dream is. It's not anybody you know. It's a picture of your own anger that's chasing you to try to get you to use it appropriately.
Mm.
It's being pressed down. And when a figure in a dream or an aspect of ourselves gets pushed down so hard because we're ashamed of it, or we don't want it, or we think it's unchristian, then what happens is that thing gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's no persons we know. It's a picture of our own inner problem, our problem that we think is so horrible. So she was so ashamed of her anger that she let it grow into a monster Now, if she kept on like that, the thing would become unrecognizable and demonic looking, which is really hard to understand what it is by then. So, but it doesn't ask her to become a huge, angry, knife wielding person. That's literal. What it asks is look at your anger and accept it just a little, just a drop. That's all that's needed to make that monster go back to normal size.
Hmm.
Do you
And
dig?
and so how would what would be another way that she could help measure that with that one specific example? I'm catching what you're kicking. And if she was saying that, and while this is happening, while there's an angry person, it's making me feel really scared. Like, would that change things? Or if she was like, well, when the angry person was getting angry, I was getting angry back, but I couldn't do anything. Like, do these change the scenario too?
Sure. Yeah, she could real easily, with an awaking experience of allowing a little bit of her anger to show, to protect herself.
Hmm.
Next dream she has, she will not be being chased by anything. That thing will be ended. That kind of dream was just to warn her that she's coming out of balance, that she's not protecting her own psyche. Now, there might be another dream where she's angry back. Well, that's somebody else, somebody who's already able to defend themselves.
Hmm.
Um, Let me give you another nightmare, though. I don't know if that answered your question.
Sure.
Well, other nightmares like that, where things grow out of proportion, are like a woman I know who was studying uh, Jungian dreams over there in, gosh, I guess it was Switzerland somewhere. She dreamt that she was walking through a burnt out forest. She could even hear the crunching of charcoal under her feet. And there were burnt out logs, trees everywhere, everywhere she could look. Far away from her, there was a stump with a little glistening on it. And she walked closer, found it was a little monkey with tears in its eyes and blood in its fur. And she woke up. She went to her professor and asked him, well, here's my dream. What does it mean? And he said, well, that is the monkey. And she knew. And you probably know too what a monkey stands for. Don't they represent some quality of an instinctive quality in us? What is it? What do you think?
I would say playful, a monkey, like playful and maybe mischievous.
Yep. Playful, mischievous, loving life, joyful.
Hmm.
And that is what she was burning out by her 12-hour days. She gave
Hmm.
herself no fun, no play. And that little monkey would eventually turn into a gorilla that would chase her until she promised to have just a little bit of fun. And she was very busy and a very responsible person. So she couldn't take off and run away for a day, but she decided to promise the monkey that every time she gave a lecture on dreams, she would imitate her professor, just like I just did. And that was all it took. That's all the fun she needed to do. A promise to have a little fun once in a, so it doesn't have to be a gigantic, life changing. It just, the dream just wanted her to notice she's burning herself out.
So it more than likely, it sounds like it doesn't have to be a big life-changing thing if you're actually sort of taking action on your dreams and listening to them and then doing something about it. But if you're not making these changes, then it could sort of get a little bit more out of hand and come into something that's a bit nastier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's nobody around to tell you that the monkey is your joy and your playfulness, then a lot of people who can't get at what a dream means, they draw a piece of the dream on a piece of paper and stick it up where they can see it, or they make a little altar and put something that looks like, I had a lot of turtle dreams, so I have turtles all over the house, little wooden turtles, um, because I didn't know what they meant, but I wanted to honor the dream. That's the way they talk about, is honoring.
Hmm.
If you can't get an intellectual understanding, then just say to it, by some means, thank you for coming. I'm willing to help. I don't know what you mean, but you keep doing your work and I'll try to listen. That's all it is. So that's called honoring the dream.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're helping other people dig deep, find the meaning of certain things that what their association is with them in their dreams, and you help them uncover meaning in their dreams. Do you have the capacity and capabilities to do this for your own dreams?
Mm. They're a lot harder for me. So, and that's why I created those two communities of dreamers here in St. Louis. Um, I, I wasn't able, and I know there's something there powerful for me and healthy for me, actually. So I formed little communities of about 9 people each. We meet monthly, and they do the work for me. They ask me the questions that I always ask them. And that's my only really sure way of having the time and the container to listen, think, wonder about what's going on with me. I don't
Mm.
have to get it right then. I don't have to know. But I've had the time to ponder with people that I trust. And they've asked me questions that are, they're focused on me. And that's a real blessing by itself.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really cool. So you're basically using your own techniques in your own community and using that as a place to help explore your dreams. That's really cool. So
Mhm.
we've talked about what a few different other objects mean. There are other objects in dreams, some relation to us. But what if we see ourselves in a dream? Like,
Oh, yeah.
and there's two different perspectives. There's what if we see ourselves like I'm in the position of me and I'm looking out of my eyes and I see other things. And then also, what if I'm actually looking at myself over the other side of the room or up on the top of a building?
Oh, yeah. Well, they show different, I guess, different perspectives of that a person can have. Most of the time when we're in a dream, we're seeing through our own eyes. We're operating, we're doing things, we're talking to people, running. But you'll notice that if you in a certain dream, you'll actually shift out of that position. You'll see yourself acting and then come back in. Sometimes it shifts right inside of a dream. People tell me that out outside position is observing ourselves. It's a kind of way of saying, take a look at what's going on with you. Step out of the picture, see the whole thing, and then slip back into it. But the person that we're playing in the dream represents our ego, the one that looks like us in the waking world, the one that makes all the nice decisions, leads us through life, thinks it knows everything. So the ego status in a dream is really you have to watch the ego. It wants things to never change. It gets scared of things that are not scary. So I what did I have? I had a big dream where there was um, a big white ambulance showed up at a hospital, and I was carrying somebody out of that big white truck in my arms who was nearly dead. But everybody in the hospital, including the drivers, everybody was very calm. And I thought, what the heck? So what I interpreted eventually was that I was in the midst of a big change in my life. It was for my health. I was going to a hospital. But everybody, all the rest of my soul, not the ego was terrified. I was scared. I was screaming. I was worried. Well, my ego is worried about change, doesn't necessarily like it. So when everybody else in the healing profession that's in my dream is all super calm, I figure the soul knows what it's doing. It's helping me understand that I'm not in danger. There's nothing to fear. How's that?
And you could have easily misinterpreted, like, I would have easily misinterpreted that as like, oh my God, like I can't even cross the road now because like something's going to happen, you know? Well, you could.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask it. I'm assuming everybody's probably thinking it themselves. Um, what's the deal with nightmares?
Oh,
What's the
yeah.
story with nightmares?
Well, I'm glad you're asking because those are the ones people remember a lot. The nightmare is really a shock technique to wake us up to something that is really seriously out of balance. And so they're like that dream with the little monkey that was dying, that was a nightmare. A nightmare is a look at a part of ourselves that we've repressed, that we're ashamed of or embarrassed by, or somebody has shamed us into believing that is not a good thing to experience. Um, and we're ashamed of it too. So it comes up as a nightmare to tell us, no, this part of you is needed. It may have been shamed by somebody else, or maybe you don't like it, but you need it right now. So I have a mental dream dictionary for myself, so that when a certain individual shows up, I've labeled him irresponsibility. One of my flaws is that I am overly responsible. So when he shows up and he's angry, I know that I have not allowed enough people to take care of me, or rested enough, or put down my burden often enough. Irresponsibility, the flip side of that, the positive side of irresponsibility, is people do things for you and you quit once in a while. You put it down and you go play. Well, that I need as a message frequently in my life. So that individual shows right up in the dream. It has been demonic. It was a monster at one time, until I figured out, what is my dark side? My shadow side is fear of being irresponsible. There's
Does
nothing
this
wrong with it.
figure look the same all the time?
Oh yeah,
Well, you can tell, oh, that's that thing, like, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Because I've told myself, oh, that's what that means. And every time I have him, I go, I know what that's about. So I've reassured my dreaming world that I get that one. I get that image perfectly. I
Okay.
don't have to have another one.
Okay.
But it used to be a demon. It was really a scary thing.
Wow. So you
Yeah.
turned that one around. So what about violence? What about, like, someone, a whole bunch of people coming and beating you up, or someone trying to choke you, or something, like, just generally violence?
Yeah.
How would you interpret violence in a dream or
I'd,
nightmare?
yeah. I'd say that I have a lot of violent beliefs about myself, that I need to be hurt. That something in me is really, really destructive and wants to hurt me. I have to somehow figure out a way for those violent aspects to have peace. I need to look at what I've destroyed, what I've made so angry that it needs to hurt me. It's usually something, the violent part of us is something that's been pushed down so hard that it has to fight back. It has to. It's not a victim. It wants to make us change. But if we don't hear the message, it'll continue to destroy our ego.
So that could be something like deep emotional pain or something like this,
Yep.
or yeah.
Yeah, having been hurt, been a victim, those victim things soon turn into perpetrators inside the unconscious. They come after us. If we're not willing to embrace them, or take the time to love our neglected selves, um, they'll come after us. And what's even more horrible is, um, if we don't deal with it in the dream, it comes out in the outer world. Our shadow is projected onto other people whom we also hate and are violent to, because they remind us of our own darkness, the part of us that has not been held in esteem.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I actually speak about that. Like, if you see someone out in public and they're going, "Oh, that person's such a rude man," it's like, usually there's a part of them that thinks they themselves are rude, and they're disgusted at when they're rude at other people. And so when they see it in other people, they want to point it out, and it's like, "Oh, you're really rude," but really it's more of just you can basically hold up a mirror to people when they say things like that.
That's how my understanding of that irresponsible dude happened. I was in charge of his department and he was always late. He was always turning stuff in wrong or not, and he was a happy-go-lucky dude, but I hated him for a long time. And I thought, why hate? This guy is not dangerous, but why hate him? So I looked at that excessive irritation and thought, there's something I'm seeing in him that I don't like. And that the part of him that I didn't like was, I never gave myself the chance to relax or to be slightly irresponsible, meaning have fun now and then. I could never let myself off the hook, so I hated him for it.
Mm,
That's how I knew
yeah.
what it was in my dreams.
But because if we haven't dissected it or really taken a look at it, it's easier to externally blame somebody else because we've got something we need to release.
Yep. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's that projection mechanism.
Yeah, it's a heck of a concept. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to the place that some may have curiosities about. What about sex? What about passionate sex? What about cheating? What about rape? What do all of these different sexual things in dreams mean? Do they all mean one and the same? Do they have different meanings?
Yeah, they have one thing in common. And the writer Jeremy Taylor, one of the greatest dream workers in the United States,
Hmm.
wrote many times that sex for him in every dream um, is the encounter with the divine. The other, the great other, is sex for him. So
Hmm.
an encounter with God. In waking life, it would look like I've felt numinous. I felt ecstasy in understanding God in some way. In the dream, then it shows up in our unconscious like, oh, we're finally encountering something so big we can barely understand it. That's the other. And and bringing it into ourselves, holding it that close, that's a deep, intimate encounter, he thought, with the divine. Now, I buy that. Um, I think that's a really awesome dream to have, is to understand that sex, every sex, passionate sex too, is just an extraordinary sense of the divine in the world that I've encountered somewhere, and my unconscious is showing it to me. Here, you've felt it. You know what it means to be with the divine. So when there's a rape dream, I'll tell you my experience of seeing how true this was. Um, I taught a class on dreams to a bunch of retired sisters, nuns, and they were very interested in this. They liked what I was saying, but they thought it was a little nuts. And anyway, they loved it. But they came back the next class a week later and said they'd had rape dreams, almost every one of them. I thought, that's so horrifying for them. Well, so I said, sister, have you felt that God has been explained to you in a new way that you don't want to really hear at all, that you'd rather not have, that you think is just like messing with you? Have you had anything happen like that theologically in your life? And they said, yeah, it's this class. You're telling us about God in a new way that we don't really want to, we don't want to accept it. Oh, you mean like there's something like rape happening to you? So I explained to them how sex is supposed to be the encounter with divine, and an unwanted, inexplicable encounter with the divine, something they don't really want, that matches that sense of being raped in their dreams.
Wow. And so then what could we do then to act on that? Does that mean in our conscious awake times that we'd be trying to keep an eye out for expanding our consciousness, or like what would we do?
Yeah, I think that for the sisters' sake, I told them that they probably needed to go be real calm about this class, not to be excessively worried about it, or to not, maybe many of them were not actually ready to perceive the divine voice in their dreams. They really weren't ready to hear that. And that the dream may be telling them to back off.
Yeah. Okay.
And in other cases, yes, in our awake life, our desire for ecstatic experiences, our incredibly deep gratitude for the night sky, those are encounters with the divine, and it may echo in the dream world as sex.
Really? Okay, that's super interesting. I would not have thought that
Me neither.
a violent sexual act like rape would translate to a divine interaction. So then, okay, so what's the deal with cheating then? What if you've had a dream and like your wife's just like cheating on you with like all of these other people, or what if like you're cheating on your wife and you like maybe you don't even like the person that you're sleeping with, and it's just like really odd, and you're disgusted with yourself. Like what would all these things mean?
Well, that whole cheating thing comes up an awful lot. It really does. But I'd look at who in the dream is cheating on who. So
Hmm.
let's say your wife. I'd want to know her finest quality.
Hmm.
Say her finest quality is um,
It's
her
her I
ability,
would, if you want to talk about me, I would say my wife's finest quality is her strength. She's
her
definitely a
strength.
very, very strong character, like a
Yeah.
lion.
Well, the cheating dream shows up as if the part of me that's strong has decided to turn away from the ego. It's developing in a new way, and it's scary for the ego to see the strength moving away and involving itself with other aspects, things that might grow my strength. She's my strength. She's my picture of my own strength. And she's leaving me. She's walking away. It's like, oh, what have I done to my strength? How have I not been appropriate with it? How do I gain that love back, the trust of my strength back? Those are the questions I'd ask. It's not about her, but it is about, am I cheating myself out of my own strength? How am I doing that? Could I
Okay.
sabotage my own self? Yeah. But the characters represent really intimate qualities that we're working with right now. And if we're cheating or they're cheating on us, it means there's some interaction that's not trusting, not pure. And we've done it to ourselves. So we've got to unwind that.
It's it's almost like a kind of a comical way to look at things, given that before we have this kind of discussion, the average person would probably, like, the first thing they do when they wake up is like look over and see where their partner is, and they'd either be like, oh man, I've got to be like way nicer to my partner, or my partner's going to cheat on me, or they'd be like, oh, they'd like start slapping them and go, oh, you cheated on me just now, or like
People do
whatever,
that.
right? It's very, very different interpretation.
Oh yeah, they really do that. That's that very literal interpretation. It's not hard to do because when you see somebody so vividly that you know very well, and they're doing something wrong, that is one of the first reactions. And you have to talk people off the ledge. I've heard
Mm,
got lots of people calling and saying, "What do I do because he's doing this to me?"
mm,
They
mhm.
think it's a secret message that that's really happening. It doesn't
Ah,
hurt to be
yeah.
nicer.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to gain more to work at trust, but
Okay. But you
it's
could
not
take it the
literal.
wrong way too, and you could be like, checking their phone and being like, are they texting people, or like being paranoid and stuff?
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay. So then what about the other way around? Let's say reverse situation, and the person having the dream is actually doing the cheating.
Yeah, I'd say that the ego is trying to get out of something.
Hmm.
The ego is not interested in the work that's necessary, or the ego is trying to not face the truth about itself. When the ego is cheating the rest of the soul, it's trying to get away with not being healthy, not being balanced, and the rest of the soul is experiencing that sense of sabotage. That's what my guess would be.
Okay. So
I'd be asking,
it's an opportunity to grow.
I'd be asking the dreamer, how have you been cheating yourself?
Hmm.
How have you been hurting yourself lately?
Okay. Or like maybe how have you not been, like, you were like cheating yourself in the way, like maybe not showing up in an area where you could show up, you know?
Yes. You're not
Okay.
being faithful to yourself, not making a commitment that you know you need to make to yourself.
Hmm.
That's really the essence of a great inner relationship.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty wild. Um so you've said it a couple of times. I was going to talk about it later, but let's talk about it now, because the concept of reoccurring dreams,
Oh, yeah.
it's sort of come up a few times already, and you were even saying before, like, you could have something that's like an angry man, and then he turns into a werewolf, and then he turns into a demon, and it's like, because maybe something hasn't been dealt with, or like, what's the deal with reoccurring dreams?
Yeah, you're
Are they
so,
more important than others?
oh no, they're not. They're not more important, but the soul tries and tries and tries to get the resolution of something that is a problem. Something's out of balance and it'll keep trying. It even has an anniversary sometimes. It comes up on the same date. If you notice the date, often that date has something to do with the problem. Um, I heard a dream from a young woman uh, years ago. She said that her recurring dream was she was wandering through her junior high school looking for her health class, couldn't find it. That's it. Came up repeatedly from the time she was pretty young. And so I said, well, when did the dream start? She said, when I was 12. I said, what happened when you were 12? And she started crying. She knew right then that this dream was about trying to heal the time when she could not attend her father's funeral Her mother thought she was too young at 12 to go. And she never got to say goodbye. And the dream was trying to correct that feeling of injustice, that unfairness to her. So it recurred. It said, you're looked from the time you've been 12, you've been looking for your wholeness, your health. And that's what she needed to resolve. That's all it was, though. She had to find out that it happened when she was 12, and that did the click for her.
So if we're getting reoccurring dreams, it's kind of like just it's like, all right, the last one didn't work. Let me come back and give you another one because I want to wake you up on this one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't escalate often, but there are people who have the reoccurring dream of missing a test or looking for an exam that they're not prepared for, trying to get to the college class and they don't know where it is. All of those are recurring dreams of not feeling prepared, and that it feels somewhat literal as a symbol. There's something in life I'm feeling not prepared for, and I'm unsure. And the ego is very unsure. It keeps wandering and looking and being scared.
Okay. So I know you've studied symbology, and sometimes symbols come up in our dreams, and there's like lots of different types of symbols. First off, like, what's your interpretation generally of symbols, and then what are some main symbols that sort of come up?
That's a great question. Really, really, the symbol is a representation of something, a quality, possibly. So, like people can be symbols, and objects can be symbols of something that is our psychic nature. So I think, for instance, animals that appear in dreams are symbols of our instinctive nature, the animal nature of ourselves. They don't have the consciousness that we do, we think, but they represent great powers of ours that are not verbal, but have a tremendous influence. So I love to bring up dogs because they show up a lot. They used to in my dreams. What do you think a dog's best quality is?
Loyalty.
Yeah, that's a good one. Got any more?
Loyalty, playfulness. I would probably stick with those two, at least from my experiences with dogs.
How do they love you?
They love by giving attention.
Yeah, and is it a pure love, an unconditional love?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It is, isn't it? It's remarkable what they are able to do.
Yep.
Their loyalty, their playfulness, and their unconditional love. That's a picture of my unconditional love for myself, of my loyalty to myself. So when a doggy appears, we're looking at a mirror image of what does my unconditional love look like today? Is it mad? Is it starving? Is it on a chain? Am I mean to it? For years, I had, first time I noticed dogs in dreams, I was walking down a street, and on both sides of the street, there were frozen dead dogs hanging upside down. Can you imagine the level of self-esteem I had then?
Wow.
It was bad. They were dead.
Wow.
So I worked for a long time to find living dogs in my dreams. So I knew they would be revived if I could find a way to love myself purely.
And then that would be confirmation that the work you've been doing on, when you're awake is actually paying off.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a beautiful thing.
So I've heard a lot of people talk about snakes in their dreams. And I've also heard people talk about snakes in like when they have psilocybin or like magic mushroom experiences or maybe ayahuasca experiences. And, there's like snakes chasing them or they're in a whole room full of snakes. Do any of these experiences relate to one another or would like experiences like that be different to our dreams? And what does a snake mean?
Yeah, boy, snakes are really potent for centuries now. And in an altered state, and when they show up in an altered state, we're looking at the archetypical version, the symbolic nature of the of the snake writ large. As it comes in our altered state, it's really trying to say, I'm an archetype, I'm a god,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm present to you. They're that powerful. They certainly represented the mother goddess in Greece 5,000 years ago or more. The snake represented the creature that could speak for the mother, for Earth. It could go inside the earth and come back out. It could shed its skin and become new. It was a sign of resurrection and healing. Asclepius, the healer guy in Greece, he used to use snakes to sometimes to bite people and allow them to have a vision of what their healing could be.
Mm.
You know, that's why that
Like you're saying literally, or is this
oh
mythology?
yeah, that you know that's the legend of his healing method. It's
He would
using
have snakes bite people for
mhm.
what purpose?
Oh, to bring up their a vision of what would actually heal their other conditions, or they would
Really?
you let them sleep in little sleep chambers, snakes slithering all through the hallways, and in their dreams he believed they could come up with their own method of healing. So he would stand by and wait. But you know that cross that has snakes on it that represents
The medical symbol?
yeah, yeah. So why
Yeah.
would the snakes be there except, oh, they've always meant healing, always, and power and wisdom, always. So for a long time. Now, individual people have experiences with snakes that could differ from that.
Okay.
And so I've met people, women, they're really interesting dreams because I mostly talk to women now. Um, they'll have a dream of a snake, and I believe, without telling them, I'll ask them lots of questions about their experience, but they're saying, oh, I'm afraid of it. It's too big for me. I don't want to have this thing in my life. When you know that it represents wisdom, healing, and power, you know she's talking about her own wisdom, her own power, her own ability to heal. Now, that's what I hear when I hear somebody describe their feelings about a snake in a dream. But that's only because I believe the symbol represents healing and wisdom
Okay.
and
And so this
power
is like if you're seeing snakes in your
inside the dream.
dreams or in these visions or something like this. What if a snake's just like flat out just like biting you? Like would that be the same thing or would it have like a bit of a different meaning?
In a dream, you
Yeah.
mean, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would, if I saw that dream, I would ask, how am I afraid of my own wisdom? How am I unaware that my wisdom and my healing is asking me to step up? It looks like it wants to bring about a healing. If it's going to bite me and infect me, bring a new substance into my being, it needs to act. It's acting. My wisdom is on the move. It's powering up. That's what I would see if I saw a dream like that.
Okay, so it's definitely so it sounds like it's not a bad thing, right? That
No,
even though that it's scary at the time when the person's having a dream,
mhm.
um,
Yeah,
okay,
typically nightmares are for healing something really important. So something that's scary like that just wants full attention. What does a snake mean? Your wisdom is looking you right in the face and it's going to bite you until you wake up.
really, okay.
Sure.
So we've talked about some of the things that are maybe, more nightmares and like sex and violence and stuff like this. Like what happens if we see angels or like what happens if we see what our image of God is or something like that? Like what does that mean?
Yeah, usually the I don't know why the unconscious doesn't seem to represent God in the same way that we do in a religious format. Um, in a from a lot of people's experience of lots of dream work, they've seen the experience of God be represented by the total circle.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever it appears like a mandala, that complete circle represents something like God being present. Um, so yes, there are visitations by beings that look like light. Um, I think on the first level, we have contact in the dream world with the invisible guidance that's all around us all the time. And in the dream world, it becomes visible and maybe as an angel form. And then certainly there's a level of a dream when somebody comes to who's been dead for a while and visits us, says, well, I'm fine. That's usually what it's for, is to remind us that we're safe, they're safe, and there's nothing to fear. Of course, I always want to go to the symbolic level as well. I'd like to look at what that person's values were, and what they could be representing in my psyche that I thought was dead. No, it's not dead. It's alive.
Hmm. So you're saying that it actually, so like if I saw my grandma in my dreams, one thing could be my grandma's soul, or being or whatever, saying, hey, like everything's good. The other one could be my interpretation of, what's her qualities. Oh, she was like super loving and caring and fun and all that kind of stuff. And then,
Mhm.
well, what's she being like in the dream? Is she being angry,
Mm.
or is she being like calm and loving? And then I can sort of like back it off like that and interpret it
Right.
like
It
that.
would become a representation of an aspect of you that's come awakened and that's really old.
Really, really. So I know myself, like I don't really remember my dreams. I think before you said like, oh, that's cool, like if you don't remember your dreams.
I did, yeah.
So like, what if I'm not getting, like, am I getting these messages subconsciously? And then when I wake up, I'll kind of instinctively know what things that I need to improve in my life or change or adjust. What happens if I can't remember my dreams? Am I missing out on something?
Well, maybe because I'm nuts about them. I think so. But I think you can only grow when you have access to awareness of your dreams. But also, I don't fault anyone for not remembering. They're doing an ordinary life with a lot of deep growth going on all the time, correcting our course as we go. I don't know that you have to have an intellectual understanding of a dream in order to benefit from it. But if you wanted to recall your dreams, you could enhance that skill. Um, Before we sleep, we say to ourselves, I'm able to recall my dreams. I'm able to recall my dreams. And I keep beside my bed a real easy to get pen and paper so that my dream world knows. It knows I'm willing to write it down if I get it. Um, I don't mind if I just have a dream fragment. If there's just a little bit that I can recall, I write that down. So it doesn't have to be the whole story. Just a fragment is enough to honor the dream.
Okay.
So if you catch a dream and you write it down, have a chance to write it any time of the day that you can recall it, that honors the dream and it starts to promote more dreams being brought to your attention.
Okay. Okay. So we may not even necessarily um, have to explore our dreams, but if we're getting like reoccurring nightmares, like it's probably something that we should look into, right? Because
I believe so.
obviously there's something there,
Oh,
whatever it is,
yeah,
you have to dig deeper.
right. It's something that's really good about you, but right now it seems frightening to engage it.
Hmm.
Something about it is like my dreams of being irresponsible. That was a monster at one time. And it's really not anything evil. It's just the part of me that knows how to have fun. And
Hmm.
I've called it by a bad name. I've made
Yeah.
myself ashamed of being playful and having fun.
Okay.
So usually the nightmare is really calling out for something good about yourself that wants to live in the light.
Okay. So we're having these dreams, right? Something's telling us that we need to make a change. Is it our brain? Is our brain like going through a filing cabinet and sorting things out and saying, here's a file that you either need to delete or you need to like change? Or is it like the divine coming in and giving us like extra guidance? Or is it a mixture of both? And how would we tell the difference?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is both. I do trust that there's a part of me that's connected to my higher self or the greater universe, and that my unconscious world is in touch with it. So when I'm asleep, I'm not filtering, I'm not consciously um, editing anything. So what comes to me is material that perhaps I've grown up enough to be able to handle. So when I finally have a nightmare about the mean man chasing me with a knife, I'm ready to deal with it. It's not like it's coming to me because I can't handle it anymore. It's because it's time. I've grown up enough. So there are sort of files that are kept somehow, and it's not necessarily our brain, but it is another way of thought, of a thought process. We're thinking here the way we've learned to talk and think in the waking world, but there's another thought process going on, and it's our inner world working through things we've thought, things we've run across in our lifetime, ways in which we treat ourselves are all kind of pictured and processed.
So you're saying waking world, conscious thoughts, and then there's also subconscious thoughts of things that we've picked up in the waking world that maybe we weren't super aware of, but instinctively we know something about it. We have a feeling about it. And then there's unconscious, right? Stuff that we don't even know that we know. Is that where you're talking? You're talking about
Yes.
like the unconscious part of us that's like coming up and, stirring things up for us?
Yeah, and I think we're full of the guidance as well. That's not just us and by ourselves, but there's input for our well-being. The drive toward wholeness is not just us figuring that out. It's, I think, the longing of the divine to make us beloved, to be our beloved, to develop fully and completely. And when you talk about the unconscious world, it picks up information we can't possibly get in consciously all day long. So I heard a dream of a person who was a woman who was walking down a staircase and the banister was a white banister with little white spindles, kind of knobby. And when she got to the last two, she felt them shake and fall off. And she
Okay.
nearly fell holding on to it. And I said, to me, that struck me as she's taking in some information. And I'm going to guess it's about the body. So I said, have you had any trouble with the last two vertebrae? And she said, that's so weird. Because yesterday she went to her chiropractor and they identified these two vertebrae as having the most likelihood to be trouble for her. I don't know how they tell it. I don't know what she heard, but we saw it in the dream that she was aware of it, but only unconsciously.
Wow.
You see?
That's
And
kind of mind-boggling.
oh God, there's so many like that, though. We get information about what the ailment is that's about to occur. When people have colds, they can often tell early. If they have a dream of a car and the bumper is hit, it's usually this part of us. Where the tires go flat, it's like our lungs. If the car represents a body, which it does in my dream dictionary, those are just symptoms that in the dream that you can tell it's coming.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So like to wrap this up, ultimately, what would you say the main benefit is of people exploring the meaning of their dreams?
Yeah, I think it is creating a space for their own wisdom and growth, trusting that they are being guided toward their own beautiful wholeness.
Okay. That's pretty awesome. Definitely something that I'm sure people get a lot out of. And if people wanted to explore a little bit further, I know that you have a couple of books that you think are really amazing. Do you want to tell us the name of these books?
Yeah, I wrote them on this card. This is really non-digital. Can you see the names of those? No, you can't.
Pull it back. Yeah. So we've got Dreamwork by Jeremy Taylor and Belonging by Toko Pa Turner. And we'll actually have links to these books in the show notes. But you highly recommend these books, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Those are them. One of them is very soulful, and the other is really very experiential. Jeremy Taylor tells dream after dream after dream. In his website, I think you can look up common dreams, like when your teeth fall out. What does it generally mean? He's done it so many times that he writes up. He's dead now, but he wrote up lots of things that people ask over and over again about.
Interesting. Like the more common stuff that people are probably thinking. So
Yeah.
that sounds pretty helpful. But I also know that you do one-on-one
Oh, yeah.
virtual sessions too. So, and I'm sure we've got a lot of listeners that are interested in following up and having a one session. So how do people get in contact with you? What's the best way to follow up with you?
Well, if you know the spelling of my name, I'm on Facebook for messages, and
Hmm.
I have an email address that I can be reached by. It's nlytton@charter.net.
Okay.
Um, and that's a way for me to make a phone call connection with you.
Okay.
Um, I have a phone number too, but those two ways at least let me uh, see your name and know who you are and see what you want.
Get the
Um,
conversation started. And we
mhm.
can have links to all of that in the show notes too. So
Excellent.
is there anything else you wanted to share with us before we wrap up?
Oh no, I don't think so. I just wish everybody a good dream tonight.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. This has been a super interesting conversation. I certainly learned a lot. There was a lot of things that I have had in dreams that I thought were like, catastrophic, oh my God. But it sounds like it's an opportunity for us to grow and get better. So it kind of makes things a little bit more pleasurable when we look at it like that. And I think, in the future, looking at dreams, it's going to be more of a pleasurable experience, even if they're nightmares. It's probably an opportunity to be a bit excited about something good that's going to change. So thank you very much for sharing, and listeners, thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave some comments, let us know what you think. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, then please leave a review, because the point of this podcast is to get the message out there of freedom, all these different ways that we can experience freedom, financially, through relationships, health, spirituality, and having fun. And so the more people that know about this, the more people we can help, the more people that can live free. So thank you guys very much. Thank you, Noeli. It's been an absolute pleasure. Until next week, I'm Bryce Robertson. Live large and live free.